We got a call that Thursday night. I think it was around 10:30 was the first call, and just said, Thomas said, hey, do you know where Micah is? She's gone out for a run. She hadn't come back.
That was not uncommon for her to go running. It was uncommon for her to go running late at night, in the dark, in a rainstorm.
And so there was at least one other call, or maybe two, I can't remember. But on the final call, it was, okay, Thomas, you need to be calling the police and start a search.
Hello, this is the Bartlett Police Department. Can I help you? Yes, sir. My wife left here about 2 hours ago. Okay. And she left at like 8:30, and she was gonna either go for a walk or run.
We packed our stuff and headed to Memphis immediately. It's about a 2-hour drive. And at that point, when we got to the house, he had already organized a search party, and they had been at it for several hours.
He notified people in the neighborhood, her friends, her co-workers. Everyone was looking for Micah. Where was Micah?
And so as soon as we got there, he said, well, she's going out for a run. So I started running the routes that I knew that we had been on from her house around Bartlett. Lieutenant Halford came to the house about 7 o'clock, and that's when the investigation became much more intense, because he took charge of the situation.
Lieutenant Halford is one of the first investigators on the scene. Straight away, he notices that Pate is behaving strangely.
As I walked around the house, instead of Thomas sitting or talking to anybody or talking to the officer, he actually followed me throughout the house, made small talk with me while I was looking at different things, explaining things that didn't need explanation.
Police officers are very smart. This is their job, and they do this every single day, the investigator. So he or she may not put all the cards on the table, but just ask the question, where were you at this time?
And he's not telling the Bartlett police anything except for her leaving. She's gone jogging.
Heavy rain, heavy thunder, most people don't go jogging that, even if they're training for a marathon. As we were looking through the house, Micah's purse is still at the house. Micah's phone is still at the house. Her ID is still at the house.
You're looking for clues. Where is the next place to look? You're asking what telephone calls were made, what texts were made. What can give us an opportunity to say that this story is not over, that there perhaps is an answer where this person is at this place or that place?
We went back to her house. We started walking the same route that she would have run, and we went through all the crevices, the ditches.
I'm looking at culverts where she might have tripped. Would she have fallen off the side of a road, off the side of a sidewalk? Where would someone have come by and tried to abduct her? What are some places where that could have taken place? And I'm looking around. I'm just looking for any kind of sign about what's going on.
Everyone's doing all they can to try and find Micah. There was very little sleep had by anybody.
There was one time that I asked Thomas, it just occurred to me, I wonder if they've had a fight. And I didn't get in his face or scream at him or anything else. I just said, did y'all have a fight? Or did you have a disagreement and maybe she's just left and spent the night with a friend or something? He said, no, they hadn't had a disagreement, nothing.
This is where investigators do their work to find out, is there a reason why this person is going missing or perhaps even killed? These conversations take place when investigators are looking to find answers to put together that timeline.
One of my first questions for Lieutenant Halford was, why are you taking Thomas to this other place? He goes, well, typically in these situations, the first person we have to eliminate is the spouse. And so we're going to question him separately from the family. And I was like, okay. And so that's when it began to sink in that we've got a problem.
When we were interviewing him up here at headquarters, and without the door closed, just a regular room, just sitting there talking to him, anytime we would ask him a question that was the least bit pointed, that would maybe position him to give us an answer he didn't want to give us, he'd start dry heaving.
Detectives begin to piece together the life timeline of the missing Micah, maiden name Rine. She grows up in a tight-knit Christian household in Arkansas.
Was 4 years older than Micah, and she wanted to do the same things that I wanted to do, and she had that tomboy kind of a spirit, and we love sports and we like being outdoors and we like doing a lot of things like that.
We are a Christian family, and we focus on trying to walk what we talk about. It's not just a matter of checking things off, going to church on Sunday, but actually trying to live what we say through the week. We wanted to be authentic and actually live our faith.
She led a rather sheltered life, though, I must say. It was a small town in Arkansas, predominantly very Christian. There's like no alcohol sold in that county.
She was a peacemaker and was real sweet about how she kind of conducted herself socially. She also was very driven athletically and academically and did well on the basketball court especially, and she enjoyed running. In our town, we have a university that is kind of this next step beyond the K-12 school that they went to. And so a lot of the same kiddos went to that school, and so she still had much of the same friend group and enjoyed mixing with them.
Towards the end of the fall semester, she meets fellow student Thomas Pate.
He's athletic, and so it matched up with my sister wanting to play basketball and be involved in those things. They liked to be outdoors, they liked sports, and so I could see how they could match up.
They were from two very different worlds. I think he had had experience with drugs and alcohol and had gone through maybe some treatment programs.
Micah knows about Thomas's past but believes he's making a fresh start. Very soon, she brings him home to her family's regular Wednesday evening Bible study.
And first impression was, he's okay. Wasn't over the top impressed, but didn't have any big red flags to start with either.
We started expressing some of our concerns. And the problem with that, though, was that we couldn't really put our finger on what it was that we wanted to point out that was not a good fit.
It was the game that he was playing. He knew the right lingo and the right things to say to try to impress us, but was he really living it? He wasn't authentic.
Despite her family's misgivings, in 2004, when Thomas proposes, Micah says yes.
It was about 2 years from the time they started dating till the time they got married.
Before I walked her down the aisle, I said, Micah, it's still not too late. If you want to back out of this, I'll support you 100%. I want what's best for you. And she just said, no, let's go with it. Let's take me down the aisle. Let's do this.
After they married, they still lived here for 2 semesters, almost a whole year.
After that, she had received a nursing job with a clinic in Memphis, and they moved to Memphis, or rather to Bartlett, which is just on the outskirts of Memphis.
A couple times as I would talk to Micah, and we would talk back and forth at least twice a week on the phone, I'd just ask her how things are going, and she would hint at, well, Thomas and I had a good day. We were able to work in the yard today without any issues.
He would push to get his way, to get control. He would make her probably feel better if they stayed at home alone.
We don't know that he ever hit Micah physically, but the yelling and the screaming we know was there after the fact. And so there'd be this argument and belittling. You're so stupid. Why can't you get this right? And then at the other extreme of saying, "Oh, you're so sweet, I love you so much."
He just belittled her. And I think that his drinking didn't help that, because it would be in those spells that he would drink and things would come out of his mouth that it shouldn't.
She had come to our house for a weekend, and he was going hunting, is what he said.
He actually had met a woman on a flight to Atlanta, and he was indeed in communication with her and had met her for a weekend down at the casinos in Tunica, Mississippi. According to her coworkers, she came back to work and sort of broke down, crying.
She knew about this girl. I remember Micah being totally distraught, to the point of where I went and got her stuff and helped her out the door, and she went home.
Micah spends her 26th birthday at her family home in Searcy. Her husband does not travel with her.
Micah did not confide in us at all about any struggles that she was having in her marriage. We were even unaware that there had been indiscretions with at least one other woman.
Micah goes home to Thomas. 2 days later, Terry and Dennis receive the phone call that will change their lives forever. They already had their suspicions. They're about to discover they're not the only ones.
They bring him in. He's questioned. He's brought to an interrogation room, a standard procedure where conversations take place.
We have a search warrant. The police gather things from within the house. They take computers, they take phone bills, they take the actual phones.
The police uncover a lot of different things, from multiple bottles of alcohol to a history of pornography, to him reaching out to another lady, whether that was via text message or meeting up in a casino in Tunica. All of these things were news to our family.
And they start going through more personal items, and it turned out that Micah kept a journal. The journal was very revealing. This journal was intended to be between Micah and God.
There was one entry in her prayer journal in February before this happened in April, and she had a whole paragraph that spoke to Thomas's indiscretions and unfaithfulness.
Police present Thomas Pate with the evidence of his affair, his drinking, and his wife's unhappiness. Pate sticks to his story. He doesn't know where Micah is.
Thomas is incredibly narcissistic, and he had a lie, and he sold so many people on that lie, and frankly almost got away with it.
Eventually, detectives suggest a polygraph, a lie detector test. The results indicate he is lying about something, so they allow Thomas to speak to his father. Maybe he can get to the truth.
Thomas, look at me. Where's Micah? What else do I not know? Tell me everything I don't know right now. Start now. Tell me the truth.
This is where the mistake occurs. The interrogation room is called that because it is an interrogation room. It's recorded. There are officers watching. There's observation being made. You are not protected in such a room. There is no protection of what you say there is secret.
Did something happen to Micah last time? Just on here, yes or no? Did something happen to Micah last time? Thomas? Yes or no? Okay, that's it. Right? That's it. Is that right? Okay, Thomas, look at me. Look, we've come this far. Let's go rest one. Let's get over with. You will feel better when this is over with.
Around 8 o'clock that night, the police pulled me and my mom and my dad into the side room, and they share with us that Micah was shot by Thomas.
Did she get the water hole, son? Is that what she did? Where is she, son? Where is she, son? Please come to you. She's on the roof.
The fact that he knew that whole time and was lying to us the whole time, it's so painful. It's so painful.
Pate tells detectives it was not a case of murder, that on the night of April 30th, he and Micah had gone shooting. Just a few days earlier, they'd found a new spot.
There's a cleared space on either side of the roadway, and according to Thomas, they would go target shooting out there. And that somehow there was a mistake and he accidentally shot her in the back of the head.
And so he takes the police to her body.
I personally walked out to where they found her, and it is way off the road in the middle of thorns, brambles, mud, leaves, everything, not far from the Loosahachie River. And it looked as if he had probably carried her there. He couldn't make it quite to the river, so he left her there, face down, with a gunshot hole in the back of her head.
I have lots of doubts about his story of the series of events. She was well aware of the safety issues involved with guns, and to not be in front of someone that was with a loaded gun.
He raised her to know about a gun. Good old Arkansas way. You learn how to fire a weapon, you learn how to take care of it.
Thomas Pate is charged with second-degree murder, a charge often used in accidental deaths when prosecutors feel they can't prove intent or premeditation.
There's no accident when you shoot somebody in the back of the head, one shot with her own gun, and you don't call anybody, you don't call 911. That wasn't an accident. That's not an accident.
Going through the autopsy and seeing the crime scene photos and looking at the clothing, which was a ball cap with the hole in the back of it, the blood and a little powder burn, and going through the autopsy with the medical examiner. The gunshot wound is in the middle of the back of her head. It goes through her ball cap, and it's not quite a contact wound, but it is close. And Thomas was very experienced in firing weapons.
Early on, he was offered a plea deal of second-degree murder and 15 years, and we asked our friends to pray that he would take that, and he did not.
It was a disappointment to us that he did not take the plea on the front end. He could have saved us all those months of grief. We wanted to grieve the loss of our daughter. We wanted to get used to this new normal of having a daughter that was no longer with us.
For 2 years, Micah's friends and family wait for justice.
At the last moment, he made an Alfred plea.
The Alfred plea says, I'm not confessing to doing this, but the evidence against me is overwhelming, and so therefore I wave the white flag.
The judge clapped his gavel on the desk and said, "You are guilty of second-degree murder."
She ends her journal in a prayer to God, telling God, "I love you so much, I really just want to be with you." And I'd have to say that Micah's prayer's answered, because right now she's with God.
I pray that if you're in a struggling relationship, if you're in a relationship that is rocky and is having some turmoil, don't keep it to yourself. Talk to someone about it.
It's actually called the invisible destroyer, and that That phrase just very accurately describes what we saw with Micah, because she was very bubbly and friendly and very outgoing to everybody. And then all of a sudden, she was very withdrawn. She was stressed. She just started having these tendencies that drew her inward rather than being outward. He took her life. He took away a lot from her before she was ever in a grave.